All right. Well, Garrett Blevins here today to talk with Bryce Lewis, world champion, multiple-time national champion, great lifter all around, and Mike Tuchscherer, godfather of RPE. My opinion, the most impactful single powerlifting coach, changed the paradigm and direction of powerlifting training. RPE is a mainstay in almost all programs now. I can't think of anyone else who has that level of influence. And we're here to talk a little bit about the history of powerlifting coaching and some of the new developments in technology that we see already present and coming in the future. So my first question for Bryce, tell me, how have things changed in the last 5 years with powerlifting? What are things you did 5 years ago that you don't do today or disagree with?
So I'll go back a little further. We just crossed like 10 years of coaching. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's impressive.
Thanks very much.
You're old now.
Yeah. So at the start, it was emails back and forth, basically. You know, like as far as technology is involved, it was essentially just a way to, communicate quickly. No videos being sent back and forth. Like data rates were too low, cameras were too low quality. And so really it was just like creating a program in Excel and, sending it back and forth. Save the file, attach it, send it. And then, some communication through forums. And see, after that, things shifted toward like, there's some group discussions on Facebook or, like some kind of like private forum or something like that. And then as far as the coach athlete interactions, things just started getting a little bit more high fidelity, a little bit more multimedia. You can send video. You can make the programming look a little bit more like aesthetic. Like here's a place for you to enter in some things that maybe let us keep track of things over time. Communication started getting a little bit more quick. You have voice messages back and forth, maybe a recorded video from your coach. Like I remember the first time I got a recorded video from my coach, Eric Helms, and I was like bowled over, like just blown away. There's been a definite trend toward communication happening over shorter and shorter timescales. I know some coaches now are available nearly 24/7 for their athletes, outside of like sleeping hours or something. And so not everyone does that, but a lot of coaches now have that option where, they can contact someone during a training session to help choose loads. And, that's certainly an advancement that has kind of mirrored some of the increases in data rates, internet speeds, access to smartphones, which is another trend actually, just like smartphones now, like you can see your program. You don't have to print anything out. It's on your phone. You can take video and listen to music and, maybe even track your bar speed, like all in real time while you're at the gym.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Do you, in particular about the increase in contact, do you view that as a net good or a net not so good?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a mixed bag. I think I want athletes to develop a certain skill set of being able to take care of themselves. Yeah. So like I view that as a worthy goal, not to feel like they need to have their hands held throughout the coaching process. But I've been in the situation where I had like, let's say a terrible training session and I wanted to feel reassured. And to feel like someone was there in the moment immediately was the most important thing at the time, so I want that too. It doesn't always have to be there. And, like there are lessons to learn about like, getting through something on your own, even when it feels bad. But yeah, I mean, some reassurance feels really good.
Yeah.
I would say for most sessions, I don't feel like I need a coach. And I don't think most athletes need a coach, especially if we've done our job, like kind of preparing athletes for like, hey, this is, what to do. This is how to adjust things in real time. And thankfully, with RPE, like training has gotten a little bit more fluid. And just, athletes are capable of, understanding that things can change based on readiness. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? What do you think, when you think, well, we had someone at the meet yesterday and you were like, when did you introduce RP? And you're like, oh, that's about 14 years ago. And he's like, oh, that's when I was born. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe you can go back further than 5 years even, but what have you seen as some of the biggest changes in the way that powerlifting coaching is done?
I mean, there's definitely the technology aspects that Bryce mentioned. I think that's a really good summary of those. I'm a training geek, so I notice trends that come and go, like in the training space, that it's probably been a bit more than 5 years ago, but there was a time not terribly long ago that powerlifters didn't do a lot of singles in training. And then, in fact, there was this stigma that you don't want to go above 90% because you'll burn up your CNS.
CNS fatigue.
And I mean, we kind of point and laugh at the term. I mean, to be totally fair to the comment of the time, it's like if you go too heavy too often, you make yourself more tired than you should, I think is maybe a more accurate summary of the observations. But it turns out that you can get used to a lot of things, and that's one of the things that, if you're managing load in a certain way, you can handle, frequent singles in training. And I think powerlifters in general have found that to be mostly beneficial and maybe slightly addictive in some cases.
Yep, for sure.
So, I mean, that's a trend, but like we see lots of trends come and go in terms of assistance exercises that spread through the community and then fade away, and then others come and go, And I don't know. There's always trends in terms of how we do things. We saw like a trend toward hyper specificity in training. Like if you weren't doing exactly the competition squat, bench, and deadlift,
and full reset deadlifts
in your singlet, then it somehow didn't count, right? And then that trend has kind of gone away, and it like trends toward lower intensity and lower RPE. And I think maybe you're starting to see that kick back a little bit. I'm waiting for the next wave of Bulgarian style training to sweep the powerlifting community.
Max every day on squats.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Those are the things that jump immediately to mind for me.
Yeah, it seems that pendulum just keeps swinging back and forth. It's just going to be one and then the other. And there's probably something underneath this, that all of these are tools which are appropriate at various times. Yeah. And as you train and acclimate to certain types of training, you can start to build durability to withstand, those sorts of bouts, whether it's higher singles, higher intensities, whether it's lots of volume with submaximal intensity or whatnot. So technology has been a theme that's come up. I mean, that's obviously in the past 14 years for sure, but even in the past 5, I mean, I've worked with mobile applications and with AI systems for a while. And for the viewers out there, or the listeners to this, when I say AI, I'm not talking about machine learning for powerlifting. I'm talking about the use of expert systems, which is a particular branch of artificial intelligence. It has 3 components: a database, an inference or rules engine, and then a user interface, where the user is inputting data to the system. The rules engine it's usually forward chaining, sometimes backwards chaining logic, which is kind of, if this scenario, then this response according to an expert's intervention. And so I'm working now more closely with you, Mike, but also just bringing all the coaches that have impacted me in my history. Bryce, I mean, I was one of the sponsored athletes way back in the day with TSA.
You were, yeah.
That was a fun time and learned a ton about coaching there, and worked with Hanny as well. But that's what's going to go into the rules engine or the inference engine, and it's going to act on a data set. And think of the data set like every exercise set, rep, and intensity. For these weaknesses, this expert thinks these exercises. For this person who likes block periodization, maybe higher reps earlier in blocks as you get closer to competition, lower blocks. I've since been learning from Mike a lot about emerging strategies and how really following the trail of athlete response might be a more appropriate or more optimal method for designing that structure. But that aside, the data set's going to be every possible option. The rules engine is going to take in information from the user and try to select the right pieces and organize them together. And that's what makes it artificial intelligence, as it's replicating the decisions an expert coach would make. With that in mind, what are some of the areas that you see improvements in technology in the next 5 years, whether it's with AI, mobile applications, or coaching generally, that you two would really like to see in the future in the next 5 years?
Greatness lives inside all of us. EvolveAI uses evidence-based research and innovative artificial intelligence to optimize your workouts so you can get results faster. EvolveAI. Unlock your potential.
Yeah. So what do we want from technology in the next 5 years or so? I'm like a huge couch fan of AI. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this YouTube channel called the 2-Minute Papers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like summaries of like little bits of AI research. It's amazing. Like, you know, kind of across fields of like robotics and, you know, like AI and stuff. And the advancements are very quick. And so this year alone, we've seen the release of DALL-E, which is like an image creation engine that's open source and available now to everyone. And you can type in like a text description, you know, like Garrett Blevins, but make him look like Elmo, you know, and it will make, you know, 9 different images of what that'll look like. And so I think we're not too far off open access systems like this available across many of the ways that we interact with technology, you know, whether it's voice recognition or, you know, being able to essentially have like universal translation. You know, you can work with people around the world who, you know, you don't understand their language, but, you know, with just a simple AI engine, like now you can, and not even in low fidelity, but like, you know, perfect understanding of, you know, high level science and programming type terms. So that could open up the potential to coaching access that just wasn't possible before.
Yeah.
I've often felt, you know, when I went to a few of these world championships that I really wanted to have a conversation with some of the Ukrainians, like, you know, where did you learn to squat that way? Or like, what have you been doing on programming? And, you know, all I do is awkwardly smile and wave because that's as far as I can get. You know, so that's one level where I think, you know, we can really kind of broaden the influence and just kind of get new ideas on the table, which I think is really exciting. Other AI systems, I think some of these tools are now like only in the hands of researchers, and much like Squarespace did for creating websites, where it used to just be like web developers. I think someone's going to create some tools that allow AI to just be usable by everyday people to solve specific problems, or, you know, allow you to get better access to information or something like that. Pre-podcast, we were talking about visual learning and visual inference as well. So coming up with algorithms that you can apply to a lifting video to figure out, you know, how someone's bar speed is looking without attaching a physical meter to the bar like we're all doing now.
All of us with our bar speed check,
Which basically it's just Mike. Which kudos, you know, like you had to come up with, you know, is this going to help you make better training decisions or not? And I don't know if the answer is out or not. I mean,
I keep using it, so
so yeah, least, that was a yes for all of you.
At least makes good feelings, you know, at a minimum.
Yeah, but my hope for AI, I want, before we start creating actual AI like programs that are just created from scratch, not expert systems, but like, you know, take a bunch of data, throw it at a machine learning algorithm or a neural network or something like that. Can we just take big data and help current coaches make better decisions for their athletes already?
Yeah.
Avoid pitfalls where possible so that athletes get injured less, so they make more progress. So, you know, we identify like just better ways to keep athletes healthy and progressing.
Yeah.
That's something I heard you talk about a while ago. And I think that's it would be such a useful tool set. You know, I'm imagining that, you know, you're a coach and you're writing a program and, you know, you get an alert that says, you know, lifters in this situation have a 20% higher likelihood of getting injured or something like that. And you go, oh, wait, yeah, maybe I should revise this or change that. Something I've been acutely aware of since forever is that, you know, hey, coaches are people too. They get tired. And sometimes you're writing programs when you're tired or distracted or, you know, and that has to have an effect. Like there's a performance aspect to the coaching side of things as well. Or, you know, an athlete sends you a message, that, hey, PR'd my squat, and you know that that's good and that you're happy for them, but also you haven't slept, and you know you're arguing with your spouse or whatever, you know, and you don't always feel it, right? And so there's definitely a performative aspect to some of this stuff. So having some other tool there that helps you just do a better job, honestly, I think would be a really high value thing.
Yeah. There's a few things I can think of too around that same vein. You know, like you could just from like a systems athlete management system, you know, like someone hasn't logged a workout in 2 or 3 days or something like that. Let's pop a red flag on that one and send a message to this athlete saying, "Hey, what's up? Everything okay?" Or something like that. Kind of like HR-ish kind of stuff, but I mean, equally as valuable as a lot of the other things.
Yeah. No, I think the human-centered approach that you're talking about, where instead of trying to go full into the machine learning or the neural network, and you have a black box issue there as well, where you're feeding all this data in, the system's working on it, but do we really know why it's making the decisions it's making? And is it having to kind of, I call it guinea pigging people? Like, is it going to continue testing and doing things? And are we going to be able to know? It's just a little outside of what I would want to do personally for my own training, since I'm actually doing this with my body. It's not just images, you know, hot dog, not hot dog. And, oh, if you get it wrong, no big deal. Like, no, this was 12 weeks of my life that I just wasted. Now I'm injured or snapped up or whatever because of the human element. And beyond that, you know, you're talking about this communication, this check-in, like, hey, does the neural network know about the depression that you're going through and why you haven't wanted to go to the gym? The human element of the coach and these aspects of coaching that are far beyond programming. I mean, when we're talking about AI coaching, we're talking about that programming component, which I think as coaches, we all know sucks up our lives and eventually is extremely repetitive. And we're like, oh. And my initial goal when I was working with one-on-one clients was to streamline that process so I could spend more time coaching, actually talking with the athletes and looking at form and helping them through the concerns that they had or injuries that they were working with. I mean, that's all very important as well. And we may be able to use technology to streamline those processes as well, the same way we've kind of streamlined programming and made that a faster and more repeatable and quicker thing, freeing up coaches' time. I think we can probably utilize technology, as we've talked about, with the advances in communication and the speed of that communication, recorded voice or video messages sent to people, especially if the system is telling us, hey, here's the readout on this athlete, here's the red flags. Maybe you should cover these topics and do a check-in. So yeah, there's a lot of options there.
Something that might surprise you about me is that when I coach, obviously I have a bias toward auto-regulation, things like that. But if I have an athlete, say again, a message from an athlete who says, hey, you know, I've got my hamstrings bothering me a little bit. And
it was me.
Hamstrings bothering me a little bit. And I don't know, do you think I ought to dial back the training a bit today? I noticed in myself that I have a strong bias toward doing what the athlete is suggesting, doing, like taking their input and acting on it, right? And I think that can't always be the best option, you know? So trying to kind of gone through this process of trying to check that bias and have a more robust way of saying, okay, we can do that, but let's do this other thing instead. Or actually, are you sure? Because I kind of need you to, you know, I mean, the hamstring, like a pending injury is maybe a bad example, but there can be other situations that come up where you might need to tell the athlete, like, hey, I need you to go for it anyway, you know, or there's a reason that, you know, we need to do 4 sets instead of 3 sets, you know, and it's not just, you know, because you want to.
Yeah.
The process of trying to extract the reasons why from the coaching process is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and just teasing all that stuff apart and kind of untangling the logic there's a lot that goes on. Like all the decision making is really pretty complicated, you know?
There's a lot. Yeah. I'll tell you, because I tried to write it. Even simple processes like, okay, we're in a workout, and how would we adjust based on overshooting or under? Well, this is kind of like there's a lot of possible combinations that could occur here and factors, especially when you add benchmark sets on the
That's
top.
a really good example too. Like I noticed that coaches in general will have a bias toward just return to the status quo. You know, hey, I overshot my RPE this week. What should I do? Well, you know, try not to do that next time, but just get back on the program, pretend like nothing happened, and move forward. And I think
Denial.
well, I mean, I understand that to an extent, that it probably didn't have this enormous impact that needs like intensive intervention. And yeah, that's probably a good enough solution most of the time. And but I also think like if you were a coach and you were working with one athlete and your only job was to do the very best job that you could for this one person, would that be your solution? And I think, no, it wouldn't be. There would be more to it. And sometimes, yeah, we just pretend like, you know, and just keep going. But there are other times where I would make smaller adjustments, or, you know, you move little pieces around, and there's a logic to it. And, but you can't scale that. You couldn't do that if you're coaching
Not
30
manually,
people or something.
No. Yeah,
you know?
even, yeah. Ooh, 30. That's the 30 is a big load for true, what I would call true one-on-one coaching. Not everybody gets their template emailed to them
But
late,
as
probably.
Mike was saying, like as if you had one athlete, but
Yeah.
you have 30.
Yeah. And I think that's a great paradigm to have. Like if your life depended upon this person succeeding at their meet and it was all that, what would you do? Well, you would be paying attention to every set, every rep, everything you would be looking at. And that takes time. And because you have bills and lives and families and mortgages and whatnot, it takes money for your time. And that's just a fact of it. I've said it before. I think there's a shortage of good coaching. And I think that's why templates exist. I think we can all fundamentally understand that a static template cannot possibly be the best program for you. There's got to be, that's throwing a dart in the dark and hoping it hits the bullseye. I mean, maybe it could happen, but probably not. But yeah. Bryce, what are your thoughts on that? You know, that human-centered approach and treating every client like they were your only client.
Yeah. I have because for myself, I've had such a high amount of value from like being in those places of having a really difficult training session and kind of like getting through it with the help, you know, not just like picking myself up by my bootstraps, but because I had someone who was able to kind of help me realize that it wasn't as catastrophic as it felt, realizing like how valuable that is to other athletes, you know, and that good coaching is different than just good programming. It's, you know, the numbers and what an athlete is actually putting on the barbell and how they're moving in space matter a lot, but so does celebrating what you did with someone, you know, and this element of sharing, you know, like it's one of the main ways that we're motivated is not just by doing this in isolation, but by posting this and like hyping each other up and, you know, just sharing. Like we're cultural creatures.
Yeah.
That was a significant takeaway. I mean, this isn't new. I've said a couple times this weekend, like epiphanies always sound dumb when you say them out loud, but I've done 2 competitions now since my competitive break. And it's just interesting to come back into contact with how significant of an event going to a competition is for an athlete. And that it's extra meaningful when somebody sends you a message that says, hey, I know your competition's today. Good luck, you know? Or, you know, we're there at the competition and, you know, we're warming up together and stuff like that. Like that's a special thing, and it's a very meaningful thing for an athlete to go through that. So yeah, of course you want to provide that type of reinforcement to an athlete. I think that's definitely true.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, if there is value in like the coaching side of things. So like I'm imagining like a future situation where not only can you create perfectly tailored training for athletes, but yeah, I mean, there could be AI at every level. So you can have like an AI chat bot, literally, you know, that's typing all the right things, you know, back to you. And you have like this personal relationship with, you know, someone on the other side, but it's just AI, you know, saying the right things at the right time. That still feels fundamentally different than, you know, having and forming a real connection with a real person.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's if technology does anything in the next 5 years, anything that I want to be a part of is going to be driving human connection, because it is not good for any of us to be alone. There's been enough loneliness and isolation, especially, with COVID and everything else that has driven us apart. I want to second what Mike said. It was so fun to be at a competition and to see all these familiar faces once again, to get the text messages from people and be like, oh, it feels really good to have a place to belong.
Yeah.
And if anything I put out as a product or use of technology or expert systems or neural network, whatever it might be, it ought to be moving towards a connection between human beings. If it's not doing that, it's not worthwhile, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good driving force. I think like with that as a central mission statement, like that just helps center like all the efforts in the right direction.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Bryce and Mike, for talking, sharing your wisdom on these subjects, for talking about technology, where things have been and where they're going. I'm excited to see the future and to be a part of really impacting powerlifting and hopefully some more paradigm shifts that make this world a better place to lift.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
We did it. All right. I think we came in under 30. Yeah, I think we nailed it.
All right, nailed it.
I did at least. Looking at each other, not the camera, when we're talking, right?
Listen, brother.
Yeah, that's my style, but we won't do that here. So, okay.
Inspiration brings us closer to greatness.
It provides us with the strength we need to evolve.
EvolveAI is built for one thing: your evolution.
Our AI-powered app customizes and adjusts your workout based on fitness level, fatigue,
And feedback, so you can optimize your training
and generate results faster. Our innovative training system is backed by research, designed by industry-leading coaches, tested by world-class athletes,
and supercharged by artificial intelligence. Greatness lives inside all of us, no matter who we are or where we come from.
All it takes is the inspiration to find it. Unlock your potential.
EvolveAI.